working. Hold on. From beginning. There. So, the elevator pitch for a major is very much like, if you had to summarize it in a few words, what would it be? And generally, our argument is that it's selective because we do keep it small. We want our classes to maintain this nice, intimate connection with one another. Our graduating classes, we don't ever want to exceed 25 at the maximum. It's supportive and it's rigorous. Even though it's a small major, we allow a lot of our minors to interact in workshops and larger classes. So please don't feel like you're stuck with the same 25 people your entire educational trajectory. It's just that our actual majors who are working on thesis projects, we keep to a very low number. In general, for the major, creative writing majors will take 10 workshops during their time in the program. They'll also take Read Like a Writer courses, and they will take a course called Join the Conversation, which is a very fancy way of saying, let's talk a little bit more critically about what it means to be a writer in the landscape of literature in general, as well as senior year capstone cluster, which is another fancy way of saying a bunch of classes that help you get to your final product in the major, which is the thesis. So what I mean by that is essentially when you join the major, you'll have a couple of options about what kind of writer you identify as. Maybe you're entering it and you say, I'm definitely a poet. I know I'm a poet. I only want to take poetry classes. I want to make a thesis that is essentially a chapbook of poetry that could be publishable in the world. Or maybe you're a little bit more flexible and you come into the major and you're like, okay, I know that I specialize in fiction, but I'm also really excited about nonfiction, or I want to write in fragments or whatever, right? The major will help you sort of figure out what your genre is, and it will have classes that personalize accordingly, and it will sort of steer you towards your thesis project, whatever that genre may be. Okay, so I wanted to just give an example of class topics that we cover, because I know if I am ever like, I'm trying to think back on the days of yore when I was an undergrad and I would go to stuff like this for creative, majors and eventually MFA programs. And I would hear somebody say there's 10 workshops or 8 workshops or whatever, and I wouldn't know what that actually meant. So I put a list of class topics up here that have either been taught last semester or this semester, just so you have a sense of what we offer. And this changes pretty regularly, but you can see that it's a really varied list, and it gives plenty of students different opportunities to figure out exactly what it is that they want to create and craft in their own time. So just,
excuse me, I think you're talking about the slides, but it's still the cover slide. So like we can't really see that.
Oh, no way. Here.
Yeah. So
this working?
Yeah, that's perfect. Sorry.
Hey, no, thank you. I appreciate it. So just like I said before, 10 workshops, and then several Read Like a Writer courses. We also have this information on our BFA website on this slide. So if you are like frightened and confused, please check it out or email me, and I'm happy to send you like a breakdown of what classes we offer each year, right? But what I'm talking about right now is more about class topics, and that relates to the workshops and the Read Like a Writer classes. So for example, you might take a Read Like a Writer class, which is more focused on the reading side of your craft with some creative work. And it might be about, infidelity in contemporary fiction. That's actually a class that I taught last semester, and it was a lot of fun. The whole purpose of that class was to look at different perspectives of quote unquote cheating couples in relationships in fiction, and see how can we write about this sort of landscape without it becoming a trope, right? How can we write about it without creating like the classic, cheating guy or Jezebel girl or whatever, right? So that we use that as sort of a lens to examine character complexity. If you're really interested in poetry, then you could take something like prose poetry, or maybe you're afraid of poetry and that's a good way to get started. Prose poetry is a wonderful introductory outlet. Phantoms in Contemporary Literature is a class that I've also taught in the past. I love ghosts. I don't believe in them, but I enjoy teaching them. Link short fiction collections. I mean, all of these are options for workshops and Read Like a Writer classes, and they circulate and change every semester. We make sure that we adjust our classes depending on the needs of our students. So while you're in the program, you have the option to reach out to me or anybody else and say, hey, I've noticed that there's not a whole lot of classes in sci-fi and I want to take classes in sci-fi. Can we find a way to accommodate that? And if we get enough requests, we make sure that we can find the right faculty member that can meet that need. Another thing to note about a BFA program, and our BFA program in particular, is that you build a really strong community within our program. Stony Brook is a big university. It has a lot of resources. Many of those resources go to STEM. But the wonderful thing about Stony Brook is that it is not afraid to give the BFA program its own space to really thrive and flourish. At the same time, there's not a lot of pressure on us to expand and just take in a lot of students for the sake of taking in a lot of students. So we have all these wonderful resources and we get to be selective and supportive of our students in the program. The whole point of having a strong community also means that you get to build relationships with the students in your class. And ultimately, when you graduate, the idea is that you'll have a few fellow student editors whose work you've really learned to respect and workshop, right? I don't know how many of you have taken workshop classes in high school or maybe in like a creative writing club. But essentially, when you're in a workshop, you'll start to get a sense of which students really connect with and understand your work and which students just like, they're respectful, they give good feedback, but it's not the work that you really connect with. So you'll get an idea over the years of whose input is really valuable. And the plan is that when you graduate, you still have those people to reach out to as you keep generating work in the long term. I mean, I have close friends from my graduate program and my undergraduate programs that I still send work to now before I even send it to my agent or my editor. And actually that reminds me, because we're talking about community, another portion of community is faculty. And our faculty are really phenomenal. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to take a look at the faculty list on our website, but it's an impressive list. I just put this together to show a sampler of who has won what accolade or award over the years, and I ran out of room. We have a Pulitzer Prize winner, we have multiple Whiting Award winners, multiple Pushcart Prize winners. We have Billy Collins, United States Poet Laureate. We have, Peabody Awards, Ray Bradbury Prizes, all wonderful accreditations, but all of that kind of means nothing if the faculty aren't invested in teaching the students. And I'm happy to report that our faculty are. They are really excited to engage with students. And that's true for me too. Frankly, I could just stay at home and be a writer, but I don't know if anybody's seen The Shining. I'm super afraid of becoming Jack Torrance from The Shining. And so I would much rather interact with other writers, especially young writers finding their path, and have a little bit of both worlds in my life. So an off semesters, just like other faculty, I'm working on, my upcoming novels, or in the case of poets, they're working on their poetry. Some of them are working on screenplays. And then during this semester, my focus is on my students, and I get to be invested and excited in their work. And that's very much true for all of our faculty. They are generous, thoughtful, kind of crazy, pretty wonderful people. And I encourage you to take a look at the list of who we have on our website. And by all means, don't be afraid to Wikipedia search people. This is true if you're looking at a few different universities. It's really, really useful to take a look at who is actually teaching these classes and check out their work. See if you're excited about their work, if you believe in what they're doing, because otherwise, what's the point? You're just sitting in a classroom with somebody who you don't really, feel the need to learn from. Other notes about our faculty. they've all been published with acclaim in their fields. Most of our faculty have published more than one book unless they're really early in their career and then they're younger faculty. But even if they published only one book, they usually have an award to back it up as well. I have a second book coming out next year, so I feel very insecure that I only have one book, but I know that I'm young. So our faculty also specialize in a lot of genres. Some of them are multi-genres. So they might specialize in, say, memoir and poetry or fiction and, essay collections. But we make sure that we have faculty that represent a little bit of everything in our field. We have an especially strong fiction and poetry program, but within those fields, you might have somebody who's just fantastic at humor writing. We have one faculty member who really, really thrives at teaching YA literature. And increasingly, we have faculty who love to teach like dystopian lit and speculative fiction or sci-fi or fantasy. In addition, obviously, faculty creative work has appeared in New Yorker, The Atlantic, New York Times, Harper's, et cetera, et cetera. It was actually kind of impossible to squeeze this all into one slide. So I just gave you an overview to show that we're not just here teaching, we're also living the practice. Generally, when I run meetings like this, students have questions about life after graduation, though I kind of wish that I'd titled this slide Life During and After Graduation, because a lot of a creative writing program is about figuring out your identity and your place in the world as a writer, yes, but it's also about learning how to have longevity and long-form personal discipline in a work that you're trying to construct. So that really lends itself to the thesis project. Our program is set up so that you can better understand how to sort of self-regulate your creative work, how to think long-term about what you're doing creatively so that the projects you're working on are marathons and not sprints, what to do if you have writer's block, right? How to think creatively about solving a problem in your work. And all of that lends itself to making you a quote unquote useful member of society in pretty much any job. But specifically, there are plenty of students in our program who go on to either pursue additional degrees or they are interested in going into the editorial side of things. So we currently have students right now that have graduated from the BFA already or are about to graduate from the BFA and are going into MFA, MA programs, and a couple of double majors who are very ambitious in going into medical school. We also have 2 right now who are going into law school. And then we have a litany of students who are planning on entering the publishing world. And in order to prepare them for that, we've been running a publishing practicum so that they have a sense of what publishing actually entails, from accepting work and digging through a slush pile to coming up with a style sheet to editing, selecting, proofreading, and publication, so that when they go out into the world and apply, they actually have a body of work to back up their dream of working in publishing. In addition, we have some students right now who are teaching abroad. We have one student who is really engaged in marketing, like she loves creative writing and wants to write, and publish her own work, but she also is excited about marketing. So she's doing this MBA fast track program that ties into the creative writing program. And we have several students who are more invested in TV production and film. So they've taken on the TV minor or the filmmaking minor. And actually one of them is already working at The Daily Show, which is really exciting. This also applies to internships as well. We have a lot of students who are really ambitious and excited about internships. So in order to help support those students, I've been working pretty closely with career services and making sure that they know how to approach those internships and make themselves stand out from a sea of other students who are applying to get the same jobs. Right now we have 2 students who are interns in different literary magazines, and this is in the off season, so it's pretty exciting that they're working on an internship during the year instead of just the summer internships that are upcoming. Okay, and then this is my little final slide. This is a student who just graduated last semester. She said that one of her biggest takeaways from the program related to seeing her growth at the end of it. And that's sort of the general takeaway that I wanted to put forth about the BFA. I do think that getting accepted into the major or pursuing the minor indicates that you do have some inherent talent within you. Not every single person can be a writer right out of the gate. But the purpose of a BFA is to fast track that ability. So it's an opportunity for you to really kind of put your creativity on steroids and build up your skill and feel that you have a really strong foundational support system in place when you go out into the real world. So that's my spiel, my fast and easy spiel. I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much, but I know I just threw a lot at you. So does anybody have questions? Is it scary to ask questions?
Hi, I have one quick question. It wasn't necessarily like covered in the slideshow, but yeah.
Take it away.
So I was looking at the website for the BFA program, and I know that MFA is held at the Southampton campus. I was wondering if that's the case for the BFA program, or if students take the classes at the Stony Brook campus on Long Island.
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, and that would make a big difference in your life. Yeah. So the BFA is on main campus. If you ever wanted to take a graduate class out at Southampton or Manhattan, you could apply to take one. You know, you're so welcome to do that. But the bulk of our BFA courses are on main campus in Stony Brook, so that you still have interaction with other undergraduates and, you know, get to like exist within the undergrad community. So I hope that answers your question. That said, we do have some asynchronous classes running online. We have talks sometimes about maybe running Manhattan classes on Fridays, just to make sure that if students are interested in going into the city, they have that, you know, that's an option for them. But the bulk of our stuff is on main campus, and you can very easily get away with taking every single class on main campus throughout your entire undergrad career.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
So I came in a few minutes late, so I might have missed this. But in terms of courses that we're taking each year, like what is the required number of courses that are specific to the creative writing major each year or each semester?
Okay, so it's a 60 credit major, which is why it's a high credit major. Some students do double major, which, like, man, bless them. That's amazing. But they can do it by just planning strategically ahead of time. The first semester of your freshman year, you are required to take CWL 202, which is called Introduction to Creative Writing. And that is your only officially required course. So we also encourage you to take CWL 190, which is a larger course. It's a read like a writer course. You would likely meet some minors in that class as well, and maybe even a couple of students who aren't majors or minors and who are just taking the class because it sounds really interesting to them. And that's your fall freshman year. You're only required to do, you know, that one class and encouraged to take a second. And then your second semester freshman year, you can pursue gen eds. You can take maybe 1 or 2 workshops if you're interested. And the same thing applies to your sophomore year. You, again, you know, maybe take 1 or 2 workshops each semester, knock out a couple of gen eds, maybe think about a minor. And then your requirements and commitment to the major start to really ratchet up starting in your junior year. So your first semester junior year, you have to take a class. I say have to, but it's a delight. You take a class called the CWL 250, Join the Conversation. I run that class, and in that class, we tackle, it depends on the year, but we'll tackle different writers that maybe we haven't encountered before and quote unquote should. I know in the past 250 has taught like just, James Joyce, or one semester it was about like Madame Bovary and French writers. I'm a little bit more contemporary, so the direction that I'm going to take it is probably like Pulitzer Prize winners of the last 10 years. And do they deserve the prize or not, right? So the class will be about that. Then, and again, you'll be taking workshops, join the conversation classes, and you can kind of pick in your junior year. Your senior year is when things get really committed and sort of more structured within the major. So your senior year is when you take capstone cluster, and that's one class in ethics, which sounds boring, but I assure you it's actually really interesting. It's about the ethics of writing in general. For example, it'll ask questions like, is it appropriation to write about somebody who is a different race from you, right? And it opens up conversations for that. We have interviews with different publishers who come and zoom in or actually come and visit the class and talk about their experience in the publishing industry. Is it ethical to copy somebody's work and then like change the phrasing and make your own version of found art out of it, like that kind of thing. That's the stuff that you talk about in the ethics class. Another portion of the capstone is essentially a research class where you do research projects about different books that you think serve your thesis. So you actually choose the books relating to your research projects, you share them with your classmates, and you talk at length about what you've discovered in your own research. So an example is I had a student who read Faulkner for the first time. He hadn't read Faulkner before. He used this research class as an opportunity to read Faulkner. And he noticed that, they don't have electricity in Faulkner. So he decided that he would spend a day living like one of the characters in The Sound and the Fury. So he basically spent an entire day without electricity. He hung out in a tree all day. His parents thought he was crazy. Didn't matter. He did it anyway. And then he wrote like this research project about what that experience was like. He noticed during the day that because he didn't have electricity, when he started reading by candlelight at night, he had to hold his candle a certain way or else the shadow wouldn't like transmit on the book in the way that he needed it to. And it's little details like that that actually informed his writing. So we say research, but it's actually sort of physical, experiential stuff that we try to then apply to our creative work. The final portion of capstone cluster in your senior year is your thesis writing. So it's essentially independent study with your thesis advisor, who you choose in the prior semester, so at the end of your junior year. And you touch base with that advisor, a set number of times each semester. Some people meet with their advisor like twice a semester. Some people meet with their advisor like 5 times a semester, depending on what they want or need. And you discuss your own creative work and what you're doing in your thesis and where you want to take it. And your advisor isn't there to write your thesis for you, but they're there to give you insight on what your work is doing and maybe how to structure it or feedback on a character or whatever stumbling block you might be hitting. So I know that's a lot, but that's a general scope of what it looks like to be in the MFA. I'm sorry, the BFA. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
You're welcome. Yeah. And then your final semester, your senior year, you're finishing out your thesis. You've got a few more thesis credits, and then you're finishing out maybe a couple of workshops if you've missed some, or taking up a couple of gen eds, that kind of thing. Are you all terrified now that I just gave you 4 years of education in like 5 minutes?
Only a little.
Okay. It's for what it's worth, it's all very manageable. We walk you through it every single semester. Our program coordinator and I meet with every single major every semester and make sure that you know what to register for in the upcoming semester. So you're not ever like lost and confused and alone in the wilderness in this process. We really it's our job to make sure that you feel comfortable and know what you're doing and what your next steps are. And similarly, if you're in the minor, you can always reach out to us and we can do like a quick audit to make sure you're meeting the requirements of the minor. Any other questions?
Hi. So I know you mentioned like the senior thesis a little bit in passing. Can you talk a little bit about like what that is, what it entails?
What is it? That's a very good question. So it depends on your genre. And we don't have a specific page requirement because I find that if we just put in a page requirement, that at the end, you're just going to write the word banana over and over to try to survive. So it's more about having a general sense of a creative work. We want you to leave the program with something that could theoretically be submitted somewhere for publication. That's the dream, right? So if you're a poet and you want to write a poetry-driven thesis, that might just be a 25-page thesis of absolutely stellar poems, because 25 pages is essentially a chapbook length of work for a poet, right? But if you are a short fiction writer, then generally we encourage you to write a minimum of 5 really gorgeous publishable stories. And a lot of this stuff is already going to be generated for you within workshop, but it's still, something that you might come up with on your own time, or, you might have this epiphany when you're writing and you're taking your thesis credits where you're like, I got to write completely different stories from the stuff I've been doing in workshop. If it's a novel, then we want you to write about half of a novel and then outline the later half so that you have a sense of what the trajectory of the project is going to look like. Similarly, if you're writing a script, we want you to write like the first 2 acts and then have a sense of what the 3rd act will be. Now you can go above and beyond and write that whole thing. And it's your thesis advisor's job to read it with enthusiasm and gusto, right? But the requirements for a thesis project on the BFA level are not quite as terrifying as the requirements on the MFA level, which are you have to finish this whole thing, right? Joseph, I think you had a hand raised.
Yes. Hi, I hope you're having a wonderful night.
You too.
I just had a simple question about, I was told that there is another way, sorry, to enter the BFA if one was originally declined in the first round.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. So because it's competitive and sometimes you don't make it in the first round, what I recommend is declaring the minor for sure. And then when you can apply, so in your first semester, you apply again to the BFA. I would encourage you to befriend whatever faculty members you encounter in your first semester in the creative writing minor, right? So maybe you sign up for a workshop or you take 202, or maybe you schedule a meeting with me even. And we talk a little bit about what it is that you want to do and whether or not the major can help you get there. And then you submit, you just apply again. And, the committee looks at it. It's a fresh committee that looks at it, and hopefully you get in that way. So it's not a guarantee, but I've seen a fair number of students not make it the first time. And then they grow so much in their first semester or in their first workshop that they submit really stellar work in the second round, and that's what gets them in. So it's definitely not unheard of. I can think of at least 5 students right now who got into the MFA, or I keep saying the MFA, keep going back and forth, who got into the BFA after, we're getting rejected the first time.
Thank you.
Sure. So I see one message that says it's not related to the major, but does our major decide the dorm that we stay in? No, it does not. So I actually, Lauren, can you speak to that a little bit? I don't know if Lauren's here.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Sangemino. I work in undergraduate admissions. So with the way the housing works is we have 3 residential halls that are dedicated to freshmen. So you will be living with other freshmen. And basically they're each residential hall has a theme to it. So you'll get to rank your preference of theme. So one could be like leadership and society. Another one could be the arts. So really you're just kind of picking your area of interest. This way you get to live with other people that have the same interests you do. So it's easier to get to meet other freshmen that have the same interests you do. So these have nothing to do with your major. They're purely interest driven. So you will get more information about that. Keep checking your emails also, because we'll be giving you more information about, steps to enroll, especially after the May 1st deadline. Then you'll start to get information about orientation and when you're going to be registering for classes and all of that information as well. So definitely keep checking your emails.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I'm sure this will come as a great shock to all of you, but I don't usually hang out in the dorms, so I don't know the answer to that question. And then the other question that I saw was, do you get an opportunity to explore poetry? If so, and then what kind of essay do we get to explore? So it's going to depend on the semester. Our workshops change all the time. So you might get an option to take a poetry workshop that is like just strong form poetry, like Sestina's and Villanelle's. Or you might get to take a poetry workshop that is prose poetry. Or you might take a poetry class that is just examining the nature of sound, right? Or a poetry class that is about the marriage of visual art and poetry. So again, that stuff's going to change every semester. And if there's ever a topic that you feel like hasn't come up, you can always come to us and be like, I want this, make this happen. And similarly in essay, there are multiple forms of essay that are explored. So you might have a semester on braided essay, on personal essay. You might have one nonfiction class that examines multiple genre of essay just in one course. It really comes down to what topics are being offered that semester. Another thing that I should mention is, yes, you take a minimum of 10 workshops within the major, and you can take more if you want. But we encourage you to make sure that 3 of those workshops are not related to what you believe is your specialty. So if you're going in for fiction, right, and you really want to be a novelist, you can take 7 fiction workshops. But we want to make sure that you also take 3 workshops in other genres, such as poetry or nonfiction or playwriting, just so that you get a little bit more experience and maybe learn that you love it more than you realized. Just so you all know, in undergraduate, I studied under Martina Spada, and I was convinced I was going to be a poet. I got into my MFA program on poetry, and I walked in the door on the first day of my MFA, and something just struck me, and I was like, no, I'm a novelist. And that's a great opportunity in your BFA to sort of figure that out. I never really explored that when I was an undergraduate because I was just like, I'm a poet, I'm a poet, I'm a poet. Nobody made me try other things. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. I see a couple of questions coming in here. Sorry, I just want to make sure I got them all. So I have one student that's asking, do I think it would be a good idea to minor in professional writing to go along with a BFA in creative writing? I say minor in whatever you want. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. You might want to minor in English, right? Or professional writing. We also have students who double major. So I have a couple of students who double major in English and creative writing. And I have one student who double majored in journalism and creative writing. And then I have some who double major in like marine science and creative writing. And I just think, oh my God, both hemispheres of your brain must be on fire. But that makes it more interesting, right? Because then we have writers in our classroom who have like all of these different backgrounds. And we're not just in a vacuum of writers talking about writing all the time. We get this other wealth of knowledge in the classroom, which is also why it's so great that we have minors in our workshop too, because we're getting a little bit more like fresh eyes on our work. So I say absolutely minor in professional writing if you want, especially if you're career driven and you're thinking like, okay, I know I want to be a tech writer or a grant writer, and I also want to do creative work on the side, or maybe just want to do tech work until my creative career takes off, right? That's a great reason to do something like professional writing. I see more comment questions, and I also see a yellow hand. So I'll take the yellow hand and then I'll answer some more comment questions.
This might be a question for Lauren, but if I'm interested in double majoring, do you know what the average number of credits majors at Stony Brook require?
So a bachelor's degree is normally around 120 credits approximately. So half would be core requirements, the other half would be in your major. So if you're going to double major, you're probably adding about another 60 credits on top of that, right, Genevieve?
Yeah, unless there's overlap, right? So a lot of our major requirements fulfill a lot of gen ed requirements. And so that means when you get in your freshman year, you'll see, something called degree works, and you'll see you're required to take something called GLOW. You're required to take something called DIV, and you'll be like, what do these mean? Help me. And it's just a gen ed requirement. You need a class in global experience. Well, lucky for you, we have classes in global lit, and they fulfill that requirement, right? So it just requires a little bit of planning with both departments to make sure that you can manage double majoring. But luckily, the creative writing department, I can't speak for all other departments, but the creative writing department plays nice. We really want you to be able to do those things, and we will help you plan out to the best of our ability what is needed for creative writing. And then you can go to the other major and say, hey, can I make this work? And if so, how, right? But it's a little bit more case by case depending on what you're double majoring in.
I think
Okay, thank you so much.
It's also a good opportunity to plug transferring credit in. So oftentimes you've taken college credit in high school, and Stony Brook's really good at accepting that credit. So we typically take credit with a grade of C or higher. So a college level course taken in high school. We'll also accept AP credits, typically a 3 or higher on the exams will get you credit, and IB is a 5 or higher on the higher level. So oftentimes those can actually go towards your core requirements and kind of help free up some room as well.
Up to how many credits of that are you willing to accept? Do you have a cap on the number?
No, we pretty much take them all in. You can't double up on a particular subject area. So, let's say you took calculus AP and then you also took a calculus college credit class. It's only going to count once for you, basically. But other than that, we pretty much just take it all in.
Okay, thanks.
What a good problem to have. So some other questions that I saw: how do I declare a minor? Can I take multiple minors? And are there any restrictions? So you declare a minor in solar, which is another fun system that you get to be introduced to once you enter Stony Brook. Generally, and maybe Lauren can speak to this a little bit more because I don't want to speak out of turn, but there's no restriction for you to declare the creative writing minor, right? If you want to, or the TV writing minor or the filmmaking minor, you just declare it. It's more selective for majors, obviously, but minors are great, and you're welcome to declare. And I think you can declare 2. Lauren, is that right?
Yeah, you can actually. Yeah. One of the emails that you'll get from us will be telling you to do an advising planning form. So this is used by your academic advisor. So they have this information when you go to register for classes for your first semester. And on the advising planning form, you can even put there that you're interested in doing the minor in creative writing. So this way they already have that information. So if you know now that that's what you want to do, definitely put on the advising planning form.
Great. And then somebody's asking, will it cost me more if I decide to double major after 2 years of undergrad? Again, I think that's kind of a personalized question. It's hard to figure out exactly because I don't know if you would need to take more credits or not. My guess is you'd probably have to take an extra semester, and then, yeah, it might cost you more, which is why it's a good idea if you want to double major to plan it right out of the gate, and then over time it's easier to drop a major if you realize it's not for you than it is to pick one up later. That said, some students do that, and more power to them. There's always a couple of students who do 5 years of undergrad because they are really passionate about double majoring, or they change their major halfway through. That happens. Are there other questions, or did I miss any questions? No. My favorite color is purple. I'm a Libra, if you can't already tell. All right. Well, I mean, Lauren, do you have anything else?
I am also a Libra.
Get out of here. Wow. Another thing I don't believe in, but I still enjoy, because like, why not? You
Do we
know?
have any other Libras? Raise your hand.
Would it be, there's a question, would it be possible to take classes not part of your major if you find the class interesting? Heck yes, please, please. We want you to take unusual, interesting classes. That is the whole point of the undergraduate experience. Not only that, but if you're in a creative writing major, it is like the ideal time to take other classes so that you can apply it to your creative work. You know, I intentionally took weird jobs in my 20s because I knew I was going to use them for writing later. Does that make me a leech? Maybe, but it was great. It paid off. So absolutely do that. Take a marine biology class, you know, take a class on astronomy, take ceramics, like, you know, do whatever it is that is really exciting to you, by all means. Any other questions? No? Well, you've all been absolutely delightful, pleasant boxes on my screen. I am going to, actually, I think you've all gotten an email from me at this point, but my email is my name. It's genevieve.crane@stonybrook.edu. You can also find my email on the Stony Brook website. You've got my contact info. You could spam me with People Magazine ads, right? So by all means, send me an email if you have any follow-up questions. I'm always happy to chat. If you want a one-on-one Zoom, I'm happy to do that as well. It's my job to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into and to answer any questions that you might have. And I enjoy that part of my job. So please, please, please take advantage of me as a resource. It's pleasant for me to do that instead of answering other emails. All right, everybody. Okay, well, I think we're going to adjourn. I hope you all go eat your favorite meal, watch some bad television, maybe do some homework, have a lovely night, and hopefully I'll see you in the fall.
Good night. Thanks, Genevieve.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Have a
Thank
good
you
one,
so
everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.